Hello, guys. You are welcome back to another episode of the show, Control or Be Controlled, a podcast designed to help you start thinking differently and take control of your life. And I remain your host, Darlington. Today's guest is Martina Drew, founder and CEO of Noble Hearts HRO Consulting and Staffing. With more than 20 years of experience in human resources and workflow development, she helps organizations solve people challenges with a combination of strategy, empathy, and practical leadership. Her work focuses on building healthy workplace cultures, developing strong leaders, and creating people strategies that drive long term success for both employees and organizations. Martina, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
I said I would also like you to introduce yourself to my audience.
Oh, certainly. I am as mentioned, founder of and owner of Noble Hearts HR Consulting and Staffing, and we provide very customized human resource and staffing support to various industries. And I started this organization out of a connection and a need that I saw where I wanted to help organizations cultivate healthy workplaces where people not just come to do the work, but they thrive, they grow, they feel totally engaged and connected in what they're doing. And that employers, as an end result, have great returns. Their specific values, purpose are achieved because they have a very connected workforce. So Noble Hearts was shaped for that intention. And I'm just, grateful to be here and to be a part of your show and be able to share a little bit more insight.
All right. Okay, let's get into the questions I have for you. So, what inspired you to start Noble Hearts HR Consulting, and what workplace problems were you basically trying to solve?
That's a good question. When I initially started Noble Hearts, it came out of an observation. I saw a disconnect for some of the places that I had partnered with, a bit an employee of when I was a W 2. I saw a disconnect between values and practice of these values in a work setting. And that directly affected the outcome of the work that was the purpose of the organization. And I saw when I became a consultant what I wanted to be able to help bridge because so many companies, they have great missions, great purpose, but then they create a value structure, which is the behaviors and the norms of how you're going to interact at work and how you're going to engage. Total disconnect. What they wrote on papers, I had senior C-suite executives doing the total opposite. And HR was always in that middle ground of absorbing the feedback, having to help people navigate why is there such an inconsistency. So when it came time for me to step out as the consultant, I knew what I wanted to cultivate and help others to cultivate. And so therefore, Noble Hearts was created.
All right, thank you so much for a wonderful answer. All right, why do so many organizations now struggle with employee retention, and what can they do differently?
Um, Retention, I think, is driven by a number of things. One, first of all, people who want you to grow in your organization have to have a realistic lifespan for an employee. If you think that an employee is going to sit in your company for 20 years, that was an error that has since sunset. I always believe that if I can get a good 5-year commitment out of someone, and in that 5 years, train them up so they can scale up in their career. And if I can offer them the scale up opportunity, great. If I can't, I helped you soar. But while you're with me in that 5-year window, I'm getting your most invested mindset, time, energy, ideas. So to me, creating a realistic window of how long someone may potentially live in your particular work setting is important. And then if you are going to scale, a person understand you have to grow their skills. Don't just hire them and put your head down and say they're here to do this one function. Look at the whole person. Understand where they want to go in their career. Understand the type of experience they want to have. That's what breeds retention. Because now you're going to cultivate and grow with their interests in mind along with yours. And I think that a lot of employers just hire for what they're, whatever the position was, that's what you're hired to do. That's where my head is at. But that's not what keeps people. They have to feel like they're being invested in and they're being seen. Um, and the other piece of retention is feedback and that understanding that we are all individuals. We have a walk of life. We got to be able to navigate with each other. And sometimes our personal differences can become more present in our day-to-day work operations. And if you help have people coached on how to coach others, help people work through, problem solve, be open-minded to different vantage points, then what's going to happen is people's defenses become higher and you either create silos or you could create a shutdown. So you've got to figure out how to maneuver successfully through that. So those are the things that I think drive poor retention if it's not managed. If those three things aren't handled, then you're not going to necessarily hold on to people.
What does purpose-driven leadership look like in today's workplace?
Oh, certainly. Purpose driven is knowing one, your intention. What are we here for? Two, have a vision for where you'd like to go. Start to design your roadmap to getting there. Prepare for the unexpected. Um, and cultivate what I call healthy workplaces. And that is not an easy thing to do. That's intentional. That's recognizing that people are individuals. That's recognizing that they have their own interests and needs. That's recognizing that you need to match and play to people's strengths. Do not just give a person a job just because you know them. Don't keep them in a job just because you like them or because it's convenient. Because if they aren't gifted and skilled in that area or have the capacity to learn it, they're going to slow down your progress. Intention is you plan for it and you anticipate the unexpected and you set yourself up for success to make sure you have which means you make sure you have the right people in the right place building with you. That's intention.
All right. Thank you so much for the wonderful answer. So, moving on, let's talk about how leaders can balance accountability and empathy when managing employees.
Accountability and empathy go hand in hand. I believe that people don't go to work to fail or to be a problem. And sometimes it is about fit. Now, you can help coach a person, and sometimes you have to help people reason with understanding if this is the best place for them to be in at that time. So, accountability to me starts with set the stage, be sure people have a clarity of what their role and intention is, the how they're going to get there, and your expectations on how they're going to approach their work while they're working for your organization. That is setting the stage. Real-time feedback. I love huddles. I love short, concise huddles. I love getting people together and they understand what they should bring to the huddles. It's a place that they can ask questions, check in on where they are with their projects and what they might need from their team members. And if there's a problem, what we can brainstorm it out. That creates a complement to setting the stage. I know why I'm here. Here's where I'm at and what I'm working on and how I'm doing with it. And if I need to adjust what I can do, can you help me figure out how to maneuver, adjust or problem solve a situation? And if you don't align with the values, you have those conversations, those coachable moments, bring to their attention, here's where you're falling offline. What can we do about that? Or here's the insight that I need to, share with you so you don't continue to fall offline or veer offline. And you put that in writing. I love coachable moments because I want people to understand coaching is about helping you rise. If I don't give you feedback, I can't help you soar. And my job as a coach is to bring it to your best potential and help you soar. So this is a natural part of the process and nothing to be afraid of. And if I find that a person cannot meet expectations, through the coachable moment process, then we will then determine that this may not be the best fit. But it's not done capriciously, it's not done aggressively, it's done progressively. So that you can see yourself that I'm not bringing my A game because this might not play to my strengths. This is not holding my interest. And I would much rather have you see opportunity and potential somewhere else and let you be your best version somewhere else than to keep you someplace where you're not, especially as we progressively have been trying to improve on it. So to me, accountability starts with setting the stage, having those real-time conversations, those coachable moments, writing it down so everyone's on the same page, and making sure, for legal reasons, because we're in an employment era where there's a lot of laws, that it can show the journey you went with the person on. But also, at the end of the day, if it's not the right fit, help the people gracefully exit with dignity and tact. That is, to me, how you demonstrate accountability and empathy at the same time.
All right, thank you very much for that wonderful answer. So tell us the early warning signs that the workplace culture is becoming unhealthy.
Oh, what's an early warning sign? Well, very easily, if you see that your goals are not lining up with your expectations, then you got to ask yourself why. Now, that could be a systems and a workflow issue. But if you have patterns of behavior that are showing up to detract from your ability to meet your goals, and so it's not necessarily the systems and the tools, but patterns of behavior. I look for patterns. I look for themes. If there's a reoccurring pattern that I know does not fit our values and is detracting from our success, you're supposed to draw attention to it. So I look for patterns and I pay attention to them. I think that when people don't look at the whole and they just focus on the one, then that's not going to give them the awareness. I'm always looking for the whole. I'm always paying attention for patterns. I'm looking for reoccurring surfacing issues. And I'm curious enough to look past, okay, we didn't meet the goal. Why? In the huddles, people will talk, but sometimes you have to pay attention to what specific behaviors are showing up more consistently. Those that are winning behaviors, those that are middle of the road behaviors, and those that are strong detractors. And those detractors have to be addressed. So look for your patterns and ask yourself, what behaviors are showing up that's winning? What behaviors are okay? They're not, negatively affecting. And if there's a behavior that negatively affects, then you need to address. So I look for patterns and I look for those behaviors that don't line up with the values because they ultimately will detract from where you're trying to go. So that's what I would look for.
Tell us how a small and mid-sized businesses, or how can small and mid-sized businesses build a strong HRO strategy without a large HRO department?
Well, first thing, small to mid-sized businesses need to maximize by utilizing software that can help them stay compliant, um, gather their workforce data that they need, that they're required to have, and make sure you have a strong workflow for how this information gets in and maintained. So that way you have a good, clean database that you can maneuver within. And then when you look for leadership, there's two different levels of leadership. There's the on-site, or if you're going to have someone, let's say, for example, I'm going to use myself. I'm often brought in as a fractional senior HR executive or people operations executive. I have over 30 years and I have a lot of knowledge and I can strategically help people align and be a soundboard. The day-to-day person might be the person that is going to deal with the day-to-day operations and the workflows, execution, and making sure things are going the way it's intended. But you need a person at a higher level of awareness and skill set, and you bring them in. So to me, small to mid-sized businesses win when they complement their existing teams, whether they're on site or even if they're remote, and yet they're young and they're emerging. And they keep a senior leader person like myself in the backyard available for consultation on a fractional level Many times I get brought in by employers to work for like 10 to 15 hours a week, setting up strategies, guiding, coaching, making sure those that are doing the boots on the ground HR have the level of support and can get the guidance quickly so they can maneuver through situations in their work setting. So for me, the best guidance to give to a mid-sized employer is to have, if you can't afford or you don't feel it's necessary to have someone with 30 years of experience, but you need that level of insight, you bring us on fractional to help guide those that are emerging and doing the day-to-day work right now. And I get hired by a lot of employers to do just that. And it's a successful match. They get the level of senior leadership and strategic planning and guidance that they need. And then their day-to-day person is growing in their competency and their skill sets and they're interacting successfully with their line staff. And that goes a long way.
Thank you so much, Martina. That was a wonderful explanation. So, talking about communication, what role does communication play in employee engagement and trust?
Oh, extensive, extremely important, extremely. Um, Knowing how to communicate a message, knowing your audience and how to approach the message is so, so critical. We also have to be mindful of a walk in life. We do not know what another person's experience has been, their vast array of social circles. We have a very broad workforce. We have like 5 generations now working together with different vantage points from different eras. As an executive in HR, it is much more, we have to be very mindful of how we coach and how we help others to coach others. So oftentimes I'm working with leaders on how to best approach and communicate with their teams. I also work with staff. How do you help bring their issues to the table? Because again, when people aren't comfortable, behaviors will be the demonstration. I have to address that. So oftentimes when I'm sitting in the room with them and I'm listening through all the emotion and pulling out the key issues, and then I'm saying, okay, these are the issues, and this is how we can express it. This is some steps that you can take, helping everybody to learn how to present to their audience, identify what the key concerns are, and be able to express it, in a way that can be understood and heard. That's essential. And trust is built because you're being authentic and transparent. Sometimes I feel like people operations and HR people get faulted for not being able to be objective. They sometimes think that, hey, they're heavy on the employer side. Our job is to be a soundboard. A really strong HR person doesn't play favorites. We help all sides hear each other and come up with a fair strategic plan to move forward. And that builds trust. So communication is critical. It's essential. And it's more complex today, but it is achievable if done right and coached up right. That's my thought on it.
All right, thank you once again. How can leaders handle difficult conversations without damaging relationships?
As I've mentioned earlier, set the stage, make sure the proper tools and supports are there, and address the behaviors and the norms that don't align with your company values or the outcomes you're going for. And the conversations, you yourself, and it's really important that we understand critical thinking and emotional intelligence. Know how you feel, know what you're bringing to the table when you go into the conversation. It's easy enough when you set the stage, you've identified what the behaviors are and the impact that it has on the work and the atmosphere of the work environment. But you yourself as an individual also bring yourself into the room. So if your conversation is not focused, if your energy is high and it's not projecting a neutral demeanor, if your style of communication can detract from a helpful conversation, you have to be self-aware because you're in the room with the person trying to dialogue on something that legitimately needs to be discussed. So the tools of having the setting the stage, being, aware of what the behavior is and the impact that it's having also means that in order for that communication to be successful, You have to be prepared yourself emotionally and in the right headspace to have the conversation. So that way it is a useful and effective conversation for all parties. And the message that you're trying to deliver can be heard, digested, and responded to.
Where should organizations focus first when trying to improve team performance?
Well, let me just say this. As I've come into teams where they have all sometimes been a little bit unsteady, I always start by, again, setting the stage, but getting to know people individually and kind of understanding their vantage point on what the work has been like for them, what their needs are and where they'd like to go, and also how how they like feedback. I'm about building synergy. So while I understand the organization's vision and what they are trying to achieve, I'm also very mindful that I have a team of people that may have different experiences in life and in this organization that may affect our journey. So I try to get to know my team that I've been assigned to work with. Smaller teams, it's easier when you can do one-on-ones. Larger teams, I may have to set up team building activities and engagement virtually or in person. And then through getting to know the team, I also show them here's the infrastructure that I'm building out so they can see here's the journey that we're on. This is the outcome we're getting to or going towards. And here's some of the supports that we're going to put in place. And many times people are surprised at the level of auditing and systems that go on behind the scenes on how they perform in their jobs. And then we talk about how this information gets shared with them. So I'm setting the playing field. I'm being fair and transparent and I'm learning a little bit more about you all so I can adjust how I give feedback and guidance. And over time, as we hit our milestones, when we hit markers, we celebrate hard. I want everybody to know we did this together. Look at what we're doing to where if we stumble in, okay, what's our problem solving solution? Because I create a fair and also open environment for exchange. Talk about the problems, the challenges, and see what we can do together to build solutions. People learn the solutions together so that way, if they come across it, they themselves know how to resolve it themselves. And people feel safe sharing ideas because in those huddles, they're encouraged to do so. I have a theme. I don't do bobbleheads. I don't like yes people who just say yes for the sake of saying yes. If you're on a team that's with me, I'm expecting you to be a solution focused person, a problem solver. And I want you to encourage. And I don't want you to be afraid. Don't be afraid of success because when we hit it and we celebrate it. And if we stumble, it's not just one stumbles, we all stumble. So let's help ourselves up together. So ultimately, when an employer starts like that, you're building synergy. And the rhythm is really tight when it's worked out well. When we have tight synergy, and that's one of the things I'll say about my teams. My teams, they're synergistic always. And I know some people like to use that as a coined or key phrase. I said, no, we live that. And I have a lot of team members that stay on my teams. I'm giving people on my teams because they struggle on other teams and they find their rhythm. So I have to say that's where I would start. Getting to know each person or the group, setting the stage, celebrating those high moments, working together through those problems, and letting people know it's safe to say what you don't know, what you need help with. Because when one is, and this is my philosophy, we link arms. We're like a chain. When we're strong together. If there's a link in the chain, then we all are falling. So we all link arms and we work together. Synergy. Love every minute. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sure. That's my question. Thank you so much. So, moving on, uh, what qualities do the most effective leaders consistently demonstrate?
One, they're open to feedback and the learning curve themselves. For people, strong leaders understand how to bring out a person's ability to share their insights. Also, is a critical thinker and problem solving themselves. So, information in and being able to see how to piece this puzzle together and share it out to the team is a great skill. But also, because it's a moving reality, you got to make sure that people are feeling like they can bring in their own information and content. So a safe space for people to actually share. Um, Trusted because you're able to speak up when you see things that don't align. And you're going to bring the best out of people, but if for some reason falling offline, you're not afraid to speak to it. And I'm not saying speak to it publicly, you can have a private conversation, but it's all about treatment, it's all about inclusion and being resourceful, and someone who helps people learn how to fit with them and the organization and not to be afraid of the change, but to step into it. Those are to me some of you have characteristics like that as a leader, you're going to do very well, especially in today's business climate.
So if a leader wants to create a workplace where people and business thrive together, what is the first step?
If you're in an organization and you have a vision and you have a specific type of um, culture you want to create and you want to be intentional, you have to know. So sit back, think about what kind of culture you want to create and what you're trying to achieve by through that culture. And then you start to align the people with what you are envisioning. First, in selecting people that fit the culture brand, and so that means that you're not just looking for the warm body syndrome. You're being intentional in your selection, and then make sure you have all the proper tools, and you could train and help their footing in what it is that you're trying to do by providing them with all the resources to do so, and the feedback is. And then measure outcomes and adjust outcomes as needed.
All right. Here is my final question for you, Martina. What is that one question you wish people would ask you that they do not ask you?
Um, what is something that someone has not asked me that I wish they would ask me? That's a really good question. Do I have any regrets, any lessons learned that helped to build where I'm at today? And yeah, I do. I think everybody who's built anything has a hindsight, lessons learned. I can envision when I was earlier in my career, I wanted to start my own business and I played it safe. I went into other people's backyards as a W 2 employee, nothing wrong with that. But I realized where I'm at today in my career that I was always an entrepreneur. I was always a builder. And I thoroughly have excelled at it once I really allowed myself to embrace it and move towards it. If there was something that I learned in hindsight, and that's why I say play to your strengths. Don't run from yourself. Sometimes, you play it safe to the point where you're giving up a lot of your natural, authentic self because you're trying to fit into something that you don't really naturally fit into. Um, I'm grateful that at this stage of my career that I have finally embraced me 100% and I understand my journey because I'm on it. Now I will say what I gained from working for in a W-2 world is perspective. So it's not that it was wasted time and not that I didn't gain anything from it, but I could imagine if I had just stepped into my light a lot sooner, my career and my business would be much further ahead. Although we've done very well in the 8 years we've operated, imagine what I could have done had I had a whole nother 20 and I wasn't the first quarter of my career focused in another area as a W-2. So um, that would have been probably the only thing. What could say was a regret? And that would be it. Just not, stepping into my light a lot sooner.
All right, Martina, thank you for sharing your insight and your experience. For my listeners out there, this conversation is a reminder that healthy workplace cultures not happen by accident. They are built intentionally through strong leadership, clear communication, and a genuine commitment to helping people and organizations grow together. So, Martina, before you go, where can my audience and my listeners connect with you and learn more about what you
Certainly. Company website is nobleheartshr.com. I also have a Noble Hearts Facebook page and an Ask HR group. So if someone had a question they wanted specific feedback on, I'm happy to do that. And on LinkedIn as well, under both Noble Hearts and my own name.
All right. And once again, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for providing real value to my audience and my listeners.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.